So this is the heart pillow that I'm going to show you how to make on video tutorial. You only need one skein of this Red Heart Party yarn. And then this is what your heart's going to look like when you're finished. So here you can see the top of the heart, the back of the heart, and then on the side of the heart we're going to have a little zipper compartment, so you can just kind of open it up and then put some items into the zipper pouch. You could put little gift cards, or let me see if my pen will fit in here. Yeah, your pen will fit in there. And if you're gifting it to a crocheter, crochet hooks will also fit into the inside. For this crochet project, you're going to need your 6mm crochet hook, as well as a pair of scissors and your tapestry needle. The yarn that I use is by Red Heart. This is the Red Heart Party and a sparkle red color. The zipper that I used is by Fashion Mode Moda, Coats, 7 inches, 18 centimeters. So go ahead and take your yarn, and we're going to fold it over on itself to form a loop. And then take your crochet hook, go right through the loop, hold the base of the loop with your middle finger and thumb, then just yarn over, turn the hook upside down and go through the loop for a slip knot. Then you can go ahead and cinch the loop around the crochet hook, and we're going to make a chain. So just yarn over, turn the hook upside down and go through the loop for 1, 2, 3, 4. So a chain of 4. Then you're going to take your crochet hook and go into the second chain from the hook, bring up a loop and make a single crochet, and then you're going to make 1 single crochet into each stitch back except for the last stitch. The last stitch you're going to make 2 single crochet into the same stitch. So now you should still have a stitch count of 4. Then you're going to chain 1, turn your work, and this time you're going to make 1 single crochet into the same stitch. So right below that chain 1, you're going to go right into that stitch and make another single crochet. So now you have that chain 1 and the single crochet into the same stitch. So far we have a stitch count of 2 for this row. Go into the next stitch and make a single crochet. 1 single crochet into the next stitch. 1 single crochet, and then in the last stitch you're going to make 2 single crochet. So 2 single crochet into that last stitch, and then that will complete this row with a stitch count of 6. Then you're going to chain 1, turn your work, make a single crochet into the same stitch, so that counts as that chain 1 and that single crochet counts as 2 stitches. Go into the next stitch for a single crochet, and then make 1 single crochet in every stitch across except for the last stitch. In the last stitch you're going to make 2 single crochet into the same stitch. Oop. So in the last stitch you'll make 2 single crochet into the last stitch, and then your stitch count is going to be an 8, stitch count of 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Then you're going to chain 1, turn your work, and again you're going to go into the same stitch for a single crochet, and then you're going to make 1 single crochet in every stitch across except for the last stitch. In the last stitch you're going to make 2 single crochet again, and then that's going to give you a stitch count of 10 for this row. So sometimes that last stitch can be tricky because it's the chain 1, so don't forget it. And you can always double check yourself by counting your stitches. So for this row you should have finished with a stitch count of 10. So again you're going to count that chain 1, that initial chain 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now you're going to chain 1 again, and then you're going to make a single crochet into the same stitch, and then go ahead and make 1 single crochet into every stitch across except for the last stitch. The last stitch you're going to make 2 single crochet into the same stitch, and when you finish this row you're going to have a stitch count of 12. So now you should have a stitch count of 12, and we're going to maintain the stitch count of 12 for 2 more rows. So for this next row you're going to chain 1, turn your work, but this time you're not going to make a single crochet into the same stitch. You're going to go into the next stitch over because we're maintaining the stitch count at 12. And this time you're only going to make 1 single crochet into every stitch back across, and that means when you finish this row you're going to still have a stitch count of 12. So now we have a stitch count of 12 for that row. We're going to make 1 more row with a stitch count of 12. So again you're just going to chain 1, turn your work, and then you're going to go into the next stitch over and make your single crochet, and then make 1 single crochet in every stitch back across. So now you should still have a stitch count of 12. We're going to increase the stitch count by 2 for the next row. So again, you're going to chain 1, turn your work, but this time you're going to go right into the same stitch. So again, you're going to go into the same stitch to make your single crochet. And then you're going to make 1 single crochet in every stitch back across except for the last stitch. In the last stitch you're going to make 2 single crochet into the same stitch. So now you should have a stitch count of 14. And the next row we're going to increase it by 2 stitches again. So you're going to chain 1, turn your work, you're going to make a single crochet into the same stitch, and then 1 single crochet in every stitch except for the last stitch. You're going to make 2 single crochet into the same stitch. And when you finish this row, you're going to have a stitch count of 16. Now you're going to chain 1, turn your work, and this time you want to increase the row by 2 again to get a stitch count of 18. So again, you're going to go make a single crochet into the same stitch, and then 1 single crochet in every stitch except for the last stitch. You're going to make 2 single crochet into the same stitch. So now you should have 18 total stitches in the row, and you're going to make 2 more rows of 18 stitches. So that means you're going to chain 1, turn your work, and this time you're not going to go into the same stitch, you're going to go into the next stitch over for your second stitch, and then you're going to make 1 single crochet into every stitch back across, and that will give you a stitch count of 18. So now you should have a stitch count of 18 for that row. Then just chain 1 for our last row of 18 stitches. Again, you're going to go into the next stitch over and then just make 1 single crochet in every stitch across, and that will give you another row of a stitch count of 18. So now we finished 3 rows of 18 stitches. We're going to finish 3 rows of 20 stitches. So for this first row, you're going to chain 1, turn your work, and then you're going to make a single crochet into the same stitch. So just like we did before, we're going to increase on each end by 1 stitch. So we'll have 20 stitches after we finish this row. So you can see that you're forming a triangle for the bottom of the heart, which is what you want, and you should have 20 stitches now after finishing that increase row. We increased that row by 2 stitches by adding a stitch on this end and adding a stitch on this end. So now for 2 rows we're going to maintain the stitch count at 20. So just take and chain 1, turn your work, and then this time you're going to make a single crochet into the next stitch over. So go ahead, make 2 rows with a stitch count of 20 by making 1 single crochet in every stitch across. And then don't forget to chain 1 and turn at the end. So 2 more rows. This is 1, and then 1 more row with a stitch count of 20, and then come back. Then, after you finish your 3 rows of stitch count of 20, and that means I'm counting the increase row too. So you have a total of 3 altogether that have a stitch count of 20. Now we're going to increase the stitch count to 22. So you're going to chain 1, turn your work, and then you're going to make a single crochet into the same stitch. So just like we've been doing to increase the stitch count by 2. Then you're going to make 1 single crochet into the next stitch and every stitch across until the last stitch. You're going to make 2 single crochet into the same stitch, and that will give you a stitch count of 22 for this row. Now we're going to make 2 more rows of a stitch count of 22, and then that will give us a total of 3 rows with a stitch count of 22. So chain 1, turn your work, and then you're going to go into the next stitch over to maintain the stitch count of 22. So go ahead, make 2 more rows of stitch count of 22, and this row counts as the first one. So this is what my work looks like so far. You can see that it's forming a perfect triangle for the bottom of the heart. And mine measures approximately 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 inches. So 5 inches from the top to the point so far. And now we're going to increase the stitch count to 24. So you're going to chain 1, turn your work, and then you're going to make a single crochet into the same stitch, and then 1 single crochet into every stitch, except for the last stitch. You're going to make 2 single crochet into the same stitch, and that will make your stitch count for this row 24. So now you should have a stitch count of 24 for that row. Now you're going to chain 1, turn your work, and then make a single crochet into the next stitch over. We're going to be making 2 more rows with a stitch count of 24. So this one counts as the first row, and then you're going to make 1 more with a stitch count of 24, and then come back. So this is what my work looks like so far, and now you know how to increase the row by 2, a stitch count of 2, and then making 2 more rows with the same stitch count. So you're going to increase the stitch count to 28, and so the next increase will be 26, and then the increase after that will be 28. And you need a total of 3 rows for each. I'll go ahead and just show you. I'll just let you follow along instead of trying to have you do it, so there's no mistake. So for the next increase, we're going to increase by 2. Just chain 1, turn your work, and you're going to make a single crochet into the same stitch, because we're going to be increasing the stitch count to 26. So now you're going to make 1 single crochet in every stitch, except for the last stitch. You're going to place 2 single crochet into the same stitch. So now you've increased the stitch count to 26 for that row. We need 2 more rows with a stitch count of 26. So you're going to chain 1, turn your work, and then you're going to make a single crochet into the next stitch over. So go ahead, finish 2 more rows, and again this row counts as 1, and then 1 more row after that with a stitch count of 26. So now we have 3 total rows with a stitch count of 26, and we're going to finish our last increase row. So you're going to chain 1, turn your work, and then make a single crochet into the same stitch just like we've done before, and then 1 single crochet in every stitch back across, except for the last stitch. You're going to place 2 single crochet into the last stitch, and then we're going to have a stitch count of 28. So now you should have a stitch count of 28. Then you're going to go ahead and chain 1 and turn your work, because we need 2 more rows of a stitch count of 28. So this time we're going to go into the next stitch over and make a single crochet. So go ahead, finish 2 more rows, and again the row I'm working on now counts as the first one, and then make 1 more with a stitch count of 28, and then come back. So now we're finished with the triangle portion. We're going to make the heart portion, the top part of the heart now. So after you finish your last single crochet on the last stitch of the last row, you're not going to chain 1, you're just going to turn your work, and then you're going to make a single crochet into the next stitch over. And then you're going to make 1 single crochet into a total of 13 stitches, and then come back. So now you should have 1 single crochet into a total of 13 stitches. Then you're going to make a slip stitch into that 14th stitch. Just yarn over, and then pull the yarn through both loops on the hook for a slip stitch. Then you're just going to turn your work to work back across, So you're going to go into the next stitch over, and then you're just going to make one single crochet into every stitch back across. So now you should have a total of 13 stitches after you worked back across. You're not going to chain one. You're just going to turn your work to go back across. You're going to make a single crochet into the next stitch over, and then one single crochet into every stitch back across. So I'm going to stop with you. Here we have a total of 2 stitches. So one single crochet back across. This is 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and I see a snag in the yarn, so I'm going to go ahead and fix that. I'll just show you on video tutorial in case this happens to you. I'm just going to snip the snag out. It's better to do that so that your work won't unravel. Then you're just going to tie a knot, and make sure you leave long loose yarn ends just in case you have to bury them into your work. And you just tie a new knot, a secure knot. So again, I'm at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So then I just continue 8, and I'm just going to work around the knot. 9, 10, 11, and 12. So now you have a stitch count of 12. Then you're just going to turn your work again. Now this is going to be the wrong side of the heart, and that's where I'll keep my loose yarn ends where I tied a knot. So you can just kind of keep track of the right side of your heart and the wrong side of your heart. So then I'm going to go into the next stitch over, and then just make a single crochet into every stitch back across, and you should have a stitch count of 11 for this row. Then you're just going to take and turn your work again, and then go into the next stitch across and make a single crochet, and then just make one single crochet into every stitch back across, and you should have a stitch count of 10 after completing this row. And you're just going to keep turning your work and making a single crochet into every stitch until you get down to a stitch count of 4, and then come back. So I just finished with a stitch count of 5, and this is what my work looks like so far. So now I'm just going to take and turn my work, and then I'm going to make a single crochet into the next stitch for 1, next stitch for 2 single crochet, next stitch for 3 single crochet, and then slip stitch into the 4th stitch. So you go into the 4th stitch, and then you just yarn over, turn the hook upside down, and bring the yarn through both loops on the hook for a slip stitch. Then you can go ahead and finish off. Just yarn over, and then just pull enough yarn through to bury into your work. So now we finished one side of the top of the heart. Now we're going to finish the other opposite side. So now you're going to take your work and you're going to go into the stitch next to where you finished the opposite side, the top of the heart. So here is where we slip stitched on the opposite side. So you're going to go into the next stitch over. So I have the right side facing up. I'm going to bring up a loop with my yarn, and then chain 1, and then just tie a knot. And then I'm just leaving the loose yarn ends on the inside. I'm going to trim it. These will be towards the wrong side of the heart. Then you're going to make a single crochet into the next stitch over, and then you're going to make one single crochet into every stitch across. So I finished with 12 stitches. Then I'm going to go ahead and turn my work and then make a single crochet into the next stitch over, and then one single crochet into each stitch until I reach the center. So now I'm on my 11th stitch. I have 11 single crochet. I'm going to make one more single crochet into the next stitch for a total of 12 single crochet. And then I'm going to slip stitch into the next stitch over. Then I'm going to turn my work and then make a single crochet into the next stitch over, and then just make one single crochet into every stitch back across. So I have 12 total stitches again. I'm going to turn my work and then make one single crochet into every stitch across for a total of 11 stitches. Then turn your work again and head back, and this time you're just going to continue turning your work and then making a single crochet in every stitch, and this row will be 10, a stitch count of 10, and you're going to keep turning and decreasing the stitch count by 1 until you get down to 4 stitches. So I just finished my row with 5 stitches. I'm going to turn my work and then make one single crochet into the next stitch, the second stitch, the third stitch, out of screen. So first stitch, second stitch, third stitch, and then slip stitch into the fourth stitch. Then you can go ahead and finish off. Just yarn over and pull enough yarn through to bury into your work. And then you just finished the top part of the heart. So you're going to need 2 of these. Go ahead and make one more. So now you should have your 2 heart pieces. You can go ahead and set these aside for now. We're going to make the inner zipper pouch. Go ahead and take your yarn and you're going to fold it over on itself to form a loop. Take your crochet hook, go right through the loop, hold the base of the loop with your middle finger and your thumb. Then you're going to yarn over, turn the hook upside down and go through the loop for your slip knot. Go ahead and cinch down that knot and then cinch the loop around your hook. And then you're going to make a chain of 25. I'm just going to show you 4 of them on video tutorial. You're just going to yarn over, turn the hook upside down and go through the loop for 1, 2, 3, and 4. So go ahead, finish a chain of 25 and then come back. After you finish your chain of 25, then you're going to make a single crochet into the second chain from the hook. So go into the second chain from the hook, bring up a loop, make your single crochet, and then you're going to make one single crochet in every stitch back across. So one single crochet into every stitch back across and then come back. So now you can see how I finished my last single crochet. So this counts as your first row, not counting the starting chain. Each time you end your row, you're going to chain 1 and then turn your work. And you're not going to go into the stitch at the base of the chain 1 because the chain 1 counts as your first stitch for the row. You're going to go into the next stitch over and make your single crochet. And then you're just going to make one single crochet in every stitch back across. And you should have a stitch count of 25 for each row, and you always start the row with the chain of 1. So go ahead and keep repeating that until you have a total of 25 rows, and each row will have a stitch count of 25. And you should end up with a square, and then you have straight edges. Then after you finish your last row, you can go ahead and finish off. Just yarn over, turn the hook upside down, and go through the loop, and bring enough yarn through to sew your work, and then just cinch down the knot. Then you're going to take your finished pouch, zipper pouch, and you're going to get your zipper, lay the right side of the zipper up. Then you're going to take and line up the zipper pouch along the edge of the zipper. Just line up the one end with the end of the zipper and the other end with the opposite end of the zipper. And then you're going to take your tapestry needle with the long end that you left for sewing, and you're going to take and just sew the zipper pouch to the zipper. So you're just going to take and go in and out, making about a centimeter sized stitch. And you're just going to sew the zipper pouch to the zipper on the one side, and then come back. So you can see how I'm not closing the stitch here. I'm just making one stitch on one side and one stitch on the other side, and they're about a centimeter in size. So go ahead and make sure you try and line up the stitches so that they're even and not crooked. So go ahead, sew the one side, and then come back. So I've reached the end. You can see how my work looks. It looks really nice. And then on the other side, this is what it looks like. And now I'm ready to fold the zipper pouch up so that I line it up on the opposite side. Let me back up so you can see that. So here you can see how I have the one side sewn in place, and this is where my long end is for sewing. I'm going to fold the zipper pouch up and over the zipper and line up the opposite side. And get it ready for sewing. So now you can open the zipper if you need to, and then you're just ready to sew the zipper on the opposite side. So I'm going to take and bring my same stitch from the last stitch I made on the opposite side, and then just bring the same yarn over on my tapestry needle. Brings the two zipper edges together, and then I can tie a knot to kind of secure it so I don't have to keep holding the stitch. And then I'm just going to line up the lining on the opposite side, and then just continue making my stitch about a centimeter again on the opposite side, securing it in place. Lining it up about a centimeter stitch width and then sew the opposite side. Then I've reached the end. You can see how my work looks, and then this is what it looks like on the inside. So now you're ready to fold the edge of the zipper inward, and then just take the two edges and bring them together on the pouch. And then you're going to take and sew the edges of the pouch together. So after you sew this edge, you're going to take the opposite edge and sew it together the same way. And then come back. And then you have the two edges sewed together. You can just leave the loose yarn ends where you tied your knots because those are going to be inside of the heart. You're not going to see them. Here's the inside of the zipper pouch, and you can go ahead and close your zipper pouch for now. Now we're going to take and set this aside and get our heart pieces. So now you want to take your two heart pieces and you want to lay the zipper portion in and put a yarn marker in the heart edge where you would like your zipper opening to be. And I did that on both edges of the heart. So go ahead and place your yarn markers in where you want the zipper to lie. And again, you're going to line them up so that the yarn markers match up on both pieces of the heart. Then you have to determine which side of the heart you want for the right side. So for mine, I have the wrong side facing up and the right sides together. So put the right sides together because we're going to be sewing the heart edges together and then turning them inside out so that the right side is showing. Then you can take your tapestry needle with the same colored yarn, and then you're going to line up the yarn markers, and then you're going to take and sew the two hearts together. So I have the wrong side facing me, and then I'm just bringing the yarn through, and I'm just leaving a little bit of a loose yarn end. Don't worry about loose yarn ends on the inside of the heart. No, you're not going to see them. And then you're just going to take and finish sewing along the edge, the two edges of the heart pieces together. You don't want to sew the portion that's between the yarn markers. So that's the only portion you're going to leave open. And then just take and sew the two edges of the heart together, and then come back. And again, remember, you're only sewing the edges that are not between the yarn marker. So make sure you leave the yarn marker opening for the zipper. So don't sew those edges together. All the other edges you can sew together. Then, after you've finished sewing all along the edge of the heart, go ahead and remove your yarn markers, and then you can turn the heart inside out. Oop, looks like I sewed one of my yarn markers. I'm going to go ahead and remove it. There we go. So again, go ahead and turn the heart inside out. Then I took and put some stuffing into the top of the heart, some craft stuffing, and then just take and place a little bit more stuffing into the center of the heart. And then you're going to go ahead and get your zipper pouch and place it in there, and then just add more stuffing if you need it into the heart. Then, after you're happy with the amount of stuffing in the heart, go ahead and take your tapestry needle with the same colored yarn, And then you're going to take the stitch on the zipper and sew it to the edge of the heart. Make sure you leave a long enough loose yarn end for burying into your work. Then you're going to take and just finish sewing the edge of the heart to the zipper, and then sewing the zipper in place. And this is what my heart pillow looks like when I'm all finished. And then I have the zipper on the side, and you have the little pouch for putting something into the heart. And then you just take your any loose yarn ends, put them onto your tapestry needle, and then just kind of weave it through the wrong side of the heart so that it's buried, and then just trim it. And then you have your heart pillow all finished with a little secret compartment on the side.